Okay, I think we're back. YouTube just told me for a second there that it was like unable to connect, but we should be fine with the internet. Yeah. Back to failure. Since YouTube's going through some things right now, but we won't judge it as failure on YouTube's part. And this is the thing I want to emphasize. And if you caught Wednesday's stream, this is connected. Because on Wednesday's stream on Twitch, I was talking about the brain's categorization machinery, how we put things in categories, essentially how we judge them. And the fact that quite often we're just wrong. And you can see this throughout mental illness. Like in some ways, we'll talk about something that could be, I think we understand as a quite acute mistaken perception and something like a hallucination. But keeping in mind that 90% of people experience hallucinations. And the great example of that is all the research that's been done on the number of people who hear their phone ringing, feel their phone vibrating, take it out, and there's no message. Right? That's a hallucination. They physically experienced something, they checked it, and it was wrong. They lacked the insight to see that their perception was incorrect. Also, our perception is often incorrect when we're looking at really simple, straightforward compulsions like contamination compulsions. Somebody might struggle with OCD. They'll be convinced that there is something on them that shouldn't be there, and they can feel it. I used to do that all the time, and then I would wash, and then I would check to feel if I got rid of the contamination. Of course, I hadn't, and I would wash again. My perception of the contamination was incorrect. Same happens with body dysmorphic disorder. Our body can look one way, we look in the mirror, and we're like, oh no, that's wrong. And we actually start to warp our brain's perception because the brain's like, oh, but that doesn't look that way. And we're like, no, it looks this way. And we start to warp our perception and become even more and more and more and more mistaken and distorted in how we see the world. And so I'm mentioning all this just to emphasize the fact that distorted perception and incorrect perception is common throughout struggling with mental health challenges. It's also present in how we judge ourselves as failing. And so I've seen a bunch of people mention recently on the mental fitness Discord server that they'd failed at something, or even that they were looking for ways to work on failure. And I think on one hand, yeah, we want to get comfortable with fears of failure. And, you know, in the business tech industry, we always talk about failing fast and, you know, learning how to embrace failure. And sure, that's great. But also quite often what we're judging as failure is simply incorrect. It's a distorted perception of reality. And it's useful to start considering that because it becomes fuel for more compulsions. We basically set ourselves up for doing a thing that we'll label as failure because then we'll feel bad, and then we'll have to do all sorts of compulsions to fix the bad feeling, the guilt, the remorse, etc., from the failure. The brain loves this. There's an incredible self-sabotaging streak when we're struggling with our mental health, where we'll create a situation that we're going to judge as a failure, precisely because then it gets us back into the compulsions. So it's really useful to start considering that your judgments about you failing, they're probably wrong. You haven't failed, and you've really got to look at whether it's helpful to you to stick that label and that judgment and that categorization on that experience. You're just having a very human experience. There's probably zero benefit to you labeling it as a failure. In fact, especially when we notice ourselves doing some compulsion, it helped me so much, one, to make that okay. Okay, I did an action. That's so interesting. I want to be curious about why I did that action. I want to kind of be a scientist and explore what happened there. And if I don't want to do that action in the future, understanding that is going to help me make changes so I don't. But one of those changes will be not judging it as a failure. So that gets us started. Welcome to everybody that has joined. Hello. I see a whole bunch of people saying hello in the chat. It's good to see you. Sarah asks, where do I live? I live here. I live right where I am. Always. It's so useful to be at home wherever we are. Thomas, he said, if we are worried about being ourselves, analyzing, self coaching, would that take away from actually being ourselves since we are ruminating and not living presently? Maybe. That's a lot of thinking about already about being ourselves. I find it really helpful to just drill things down to some simple actions and not get caught up in an idea of like some big self. But just, yeah, there are some things I do and I'm going to enjoy doing them. Yeah, styled by stickers. He said, I do that with relational compulsions. I create a wrong that I've done or even a wrong someone else has done so I can apologize or ask them to apologize instead of just asking for a hug. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, actually, it's great you brought that up because you see too, yeah, it's this much bigger pattern of us just judging things as problems because then we've got to fix them and starting to see that as really fundamental to a struggle with mental health. And maybe, yeah, we just want to hug. Yeah. Dave, I think you're asking, am I gonna, I don't know what a beard harvest is. That sounds like something aliens come to planet Earth and they harvest beards, which sounds terrifying. Um, yeah, I think like, will I shave the beard at some point? I mean, I suppose it's possible. It's when moving around, I find actually having a beard is more convenient because I can just kind of it's there and I can trim it, and that tends to be easier to access than carrying around all sorts of razors and equipment and so on. Captain, yes, he said, I've noticed that cutting compulsions around thoughts and feelings usually makes the brain move to body parts like headaches, physical pains in the bodies, arms, etc. Yes, I find this is super important. Comes up all the time. I always emphasize this to people when we're working on mental health skills. Almost guaranteed, you're gonna get to a point where you're like, "Hey, I'm fine with anxiety. Intrusive thoughts are okay." You're like, "Yeah, this is taken care of," and then boom, the brain like something physical is gonna happen. It's been so common over the years that say I'll be working with some coaching clients and we're done, uh, but and I always emphasize this, but then there's maybe a couple months later, I'll get a message because they've been going to like a bunch of doctors about a physical issue, and they're like, yeah, all the doctors are like, yeah, there's nothing wrong, and I'm like, but there's this real physical issue. It's so consistent. And there's not a lot of great research on this. There have been a bunch of studies that try to look into why these kinds of things happen, but I think it's really difficult to study because you have to get people at a very particular time. So they've cut out a whole bunch of mental compulsions, and boom, they start experiencing physical issues. So this is why I emphasize it's so important to work on uncomfortable, unwanted experiences. Mental pain, like intrusive thoughts, emotional pain, like anxiety, physical pain, like whatever the hell ends up happening in the body, those are the same. And the work is on changing our relationship with those uncomfortable, unwanted experiences. Because if we judge a physical pain as real and therefore requiring compulsions, then the brain is happy to go for that because it's just after the compulsions. So it's something to keep an eye on and to kind of expect to say, hey, like, this work, it's not about fixing anxiety or depression or intrusive thoughts or whatever. It's about changing my relationship with uncomfortable experiences while I live my life and do the things I want to do. Rocky Fighter said, how to work without motivation because not everything seems to work without a reason. I'm not sure I totally understand the last part of your question, but yeah, the first part, it's so important not to rely on motivation. It's just like any other feeling. It's like asking a toaster if you have permission to live, and then of course you're not going to get it. It's just like looking for a clean feeling. Like if somebody wants to feel clean before leaving the house, of course they're going to feel dirty. Rachel, you said on April 10th, that's like me, or I said on April 10th, learning how to touch thoughts is a good skill. Wouldn't that still be engagement and counterintuitive regarding exposure to intrusive thoughts, feelings as compulsions? Let it be natural. Yeah, but that's the thing. It's not about going out and searching for them in any weird way. It's the fact that they're just naturally going to come up. If you're living your life, and I don't know, you're in the grocery store, buying things I buy in the grocery store, like I'm just, chocolate, dulce de leche, just filling up my cart. And then a song comes on the radio that just reminds me of a really painful experience in the past. I need to learn how to touch that because it's there. I'm not doing any, particular thing to go and chase it. That's just going to come up throughout life. Or, yeah, we're doing something at work and we had a difficult experience in the past where we judged something as a failure and we think, oh no, this job's great because I don't have to do any of that thing in the past that involved failure. And then, yeah, a new project comes up and they're like, hey, we're doing this new innovative project. Rachel, we'd love for you to run it, and oh, it's going to be so exciting. It's about something you have experience with in the past, and it's this thing where you struggled with failure before, and so it's going to be really important to be able to touch that and say, okay, yeah, this does have a whole bunch of meanings and pain attached to it, and I want to step into it, and I'm going to do the things I want to do. Yeah, I can remember those experiences from the past. Okay. I don't have to pretend they weren't there. In fact, what can I learn from them that'll actually help me do things differently now? And so I want to be able to pick that up, look at it, and say, oh, and even be able to ask, oh, yeah, why does this still hurt? And put it back down again. But yeah, no, life will supply all of the work on that naturally. There won't be any need to go running around looking for it. Don Chiho said how to stop rumination. So there's a couple things I'd look at with stopping rumination. One, meditation is a fantastic skill for learning how to stop doing things in our heads. In many ways, meditation is the opposite of rumination. You can't be meditating and ruminating. As well, it was really useful to learn how to take that same skill of meditating, so not doing stuff in my head, and apply that to other areas in life, especially things I liked. I think we often approach rumination as this, like thinking about bad things or thinking about worries. But it helped me so much to see that I was constantly practicing rumination throughout the day and how I would, think about what I was going to eat for dinner or planning future scenarios in my head that I liked. So because I was doing all the time, I was teaching my brain to do it more. Excuse me. And then it wanted to do it around bad things too. And it was really difficult to stop that because I had chosen to invest so much practice time in ruminating around stuff I liked. Tona, hello. Oh, Josh, thank you for reading. Riley, thanks for watching the videos. Yeah, I said tips to start getting over food contamination anxiety. So yes, there is a whole live stream that would be relevant to this. A lot of it was on vomit and food fears, but you will be able to apply it to food contamination because that was something I struggled with too. So the stream explains about the types of things I had to do with food. But yeah, it's gonna involve like buying food and eating it. And there were also because there were all sorts of foods I wouldn't buy back in the day when I struggled because I was afraid I was gonna get like poison from them. I used to do this because I was convinced I was gonna get poison from food, or that it was always the foods would always get muddled up. So one, it was I would get someone had tampered with the food and I would get poisoned by it. But also I was afraid of just germs in general. So when I was really struggling, I was only buying like processed food, like frozen food. One, because I felt like if it was frozen, then I would just like take it out of the box and put it in something. Because also I was being a terrible cook because I just wanted to burn everything. But also I was convinced that, oh well, if it was tampered with and it came from like a company, like a big company that processed food, then I mean, then it would be their responsibility, and they like that, there'd be a big recall or something like that, and that it would somehow be better if I got poisoned from corporate processed food. No, like it's not. And so it's really useful to look at values around how we want to nourish ourselves. And then it'll be about doing exercises around eating food. And so I'm trying to think of what that video is called. It's not that long ago, and you'll see it. So actually, I can't remember the video. I think it mentions vomit and emetophobia in the title, but you can definitely watch it much more generally about food. Because yeah, part of it was like the fear that if there was something contaminated and I ate it, also then I would vomit. But you'll be able to see the thumbnail if you go into my videos, because it's got like a thumbnail of a stick figure rainbow vomiting on another stick figure. So yeah, check it out. Let me know if you have any questions as you're exploring that. Jasmine, he said, is OCD curable or manageable? So I mean, I haven't had OCD in over a decade. It's totally possible to get over OCD. I think you can also absolutely choose to manage it. That's totally an option. The the thing I think that people struggle with when asking about is it curable, it really helped me to see that OCD was stuff I was doing. So there isn't like this thing you're going to go and cure, like you're going to take some medication that's going to fix something. It was totally about stuff that I was doing and how I was interacting with experiences and inside my head and outside of it. So, I mean, the great thing about that is that, yeah, it's totally possible to ditch it and leave it behind, but it involves us making changes. Marlos, I see your comment there. Do you have a question about that? It sounds like you already see that's not useful to you, is it? Arfaj, it sounds like you're going through some stuff. Selma, so Selma, your question here. So you said, any tips on how to stop the confessing compulsion? I feel like I can't handle a bad experience alone when I'm the only one who knows about it. It feels so heavy when it's a secret. So, I mean, stopping the confessing compulsion is going to involve stopping it. A lot of the times we are looking for like some kind of tip. But really, that's actually pointing at the thing we probably need to work on more, because it's not about the confessing, it's about I don't want to feel uncomfortable or I don't want to feel scared. It's really going to help to see that actually quite often the topic is totally irrelevant. The topic is just the thing that makes us feel uncomfortable. And it's the uncomfortable feeling that we react to. So just like I was talking about before, uncomfortable physical experiences, emotional experiences, cognitive experiences. That's what the work is about. It might help to shift a bit to that, to say, oh, like I want to learn how to sit with uncomfortable experiences. It just happens right now that the brain latches on to this confessing thing, the guilt around a terrible thing or something like that, because it knows it's going to make you uncomfortable and you're going to want to fix that. What would it be like to explore sitting with that that kind of uncomfortableness? I often talk about it as the brain pushing us around. What would it be like to sit with the brain trying to push you around, but you don't let it? And even Rai, kind of talking about something similar here in a comment just below, said, I keep failing. I mean, you can call it that if you want, because I keep getting overwhelmed after a while by the increasing anxiety. I tolerate it for a few days, but after a week of 3 to 4 hours of sleep and almost round the clock anxiety, I burn up. So, one thing that jumps out there is that sounds like a lot of compulsions going on there. And I would just, yeah, look at what's going on there, and is it useful to you? Oh, Joshi, yeah, I said, any tips for social anxiety? Talking to people. Yeah, this, really deciding, hey, this is how much social interaction I'm going to give this person, me, and then just going to it and doing it. Identifying those things around social anxiety that you find most challenging. Like, for instance, one thing I practiced a bunch was inviting people out to do stuff because I was afraid of like getting rejected, or I would invite people to something and they wouldn't like it. And so yeah, so what you do then is you invite people out to stuff. So whatever it is you find you struggle with, and whatever it is you want to be doing more of in life, you line those two up and you say, hey, I want to be doing more of this, and I want to build this skill on the way there. And then you just line up a bunch of stuff and you just get out there, talk to people, you organize things, spend time with people, explore how you want to build relationships. Keeping in mind that we only struggle with social anxiety if we like people. Right? We want to build relationships and we really care about people, which is why they make us anxious. We're afraid of losing them, we're afraid of not having them. So using that understanding to pivot towards doing some difficult things. That the pain here, the anxiety, the uncertainty actually comes from love and wanting to build relationships. And that's something you can do. Neon purple. So to your question there, I would look at it like, what do you want to spend your time and energy on? Because you already know this stuff coming up is false. So why, right, if you have to debate it, that implies to the brain that it could be true. And so what I always emphasize is, like, we don't want to get in the debate with the brain. Engaging in the debate implies that the debate is winnable from the other side. See, you don't have a debate about like whether gravity exists or not. You don't have a debate about your self-worth. It's just a fact. And so just being aware of that, because right now it sounds like you're looking for a way to like win the debate, but just engaging in the debate is losing it. Bagel, 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 welcome. Oh, English muffins this morning. Yeah, I mean, it's not. It doesn't make you a traitor to bagels. I mean, it's still breakfast, and we can celebrate it. Actually, I just had good empanadas uh, a little while ago. It was kind of like second breakfast, but they were really delicious. Denizen of life. Yeah, thanks for sharing about your journey with not no longer getting caught up in what other people think about you. Hmm. And like you're saying there, yeah, seeing that the intrusive thought, it's not actually this bad, terrible thing. Like, it's pointing at something we care about. It is just the brain trying to protect us. Ultimate opportunist. He said, any tips on learning how to stand up for yourself? One of the things that I find really important with mental health is seeing it as the practice of being ourselves. One of the great places to start practicing that is with ourselves. So often we are the one who is putting ourselves down. Or, the brain throws up something and we just let it push us around. And so because we do that with ourselves and with our brains, and we practice that a lot, then it is very difficult to not be ourselves. Or it is very difficult to be ourselves and to not get pushed around in other situations. So I always look for, like, I would have, when someone brings that up, I always have a lot of questions about how you're treating yourself first. And yeah, we do want to practice standing up for ourselves in other situations, but it's about starting to see, like, we do have to practice that with ourselves. And then we can apply that in other areas and it can be a bit easier. Oh, right. Yeah, he said, but why do we find things important, things we want to do? If we don't rely on motivation, it's usually because they make us feel good, bad, either short term or long term. Yeah, but I would say that approach, as you just described it, leads to, as you seem, like, not being motivated, not getting things done, really being reactive, like, rather than being able to say, oh, here is a thing that's good for this person, and so I'm going to do it. We just end up very reactive. We don't end up going where we want to go. Then we wonder why we haven't gone there, and so on. So I'd say, yeah, that approach of just checking for random feelings or random things that come up, yeah, it's totally approach somebody can take, but I would expect it to lead to what, kind of not being motivated and not knowing what to do, and then also not actually taking ourselves in a direction that's good for us. And so a metaphor I often encourage people to look at around this is a garden. I can see a garden outside my window here right now. It's a beautiful garden. And the thing is, that garden, there's different plants in it. Actually, I can see, actually, this garden I'm looking at right now has been planted very cleverly, in that there are plants put side by side, that are good for each other. We can't leave that up to, oh, do I feel like these plants go together? Maybe this year I don't want to put these plants together. And when we leave it up to that kind of just random, how do I feel right now? Or if I'm like, oh, I don't feel like watering the plants, I don't feel like weeding it, who cares? Then what happens to the garden? It doesn't grow well. We have the capacity to take a step back and look at ourselves and say, what's going to help this person grow well? What's going to help this person thrive? And then we can practice those actions. And we need to be able to practice those actions with any thoughts or feelings that come up. Otherwise, several months down the road, when the garden doesn't grow the way we want it to, we can't be surprised. We can look at ourselves as a pretty amazing special plant, and really ask, like, what's going to help this plant grow well? Joseph, yes. He said, well, first of all, I'm good, thank you. He said, when you talk about doing the actions we value, does it mean mental actions as well? Yes, like while studying or reading something. 100%. Always so important to understand. When we're talking about doing values, it's not about saying, oh, I did all the things I valued, but I ruminated the whole time. Oh, why am I still anxious? Of course, because actually also we're not doing the things we value if in our heads we're doing something else, like time traveling. If we're trying to fix the past or control the future, that's not doing the thing we care about. And so, yeah, really recognizing that actions include outside of the head and inside the head. It's about, like, doing the thing we want to do is the alignment of what's going on inside the head, with what's going on outside of the head. And yeah, that's where things like mindfulness, like in many ways, mindfulness is about lining up those two. I'm doing the thing I'm doing. Alize, I don't remember seeing it in email. But yeah, if you say moving continents, there's a lot going on in your life. That's great. Yeah, it's, moving forward is about taking those steps forward. So I always say, whenever people are doing a move, there's always a lot going on. So it's identifying what's most important to us and giving our time and energy to that. Isabel, good after morning. Yeah, bagel, bagel, bagel just moved too. And yeah, that's a great question there. What would you like to move forward to? Hmm. Hey, SEO. She said, what's the best exercise for accepting thoughts and feelings? If it's meditation, how exactly do you have a tutorial or something? So I would actually watch out for looking for a thing to do to accept. There is a video on my channel called The Weakness of Recovery where it talks about accepting an apple. You're probably very skilled at acceptance already. You don't do anything to accept things. Like there's a tree outside. I'm not doing anything to accept it right now. And right, if I had to stop and go, guys, we've got to stop the live stream right now because there is a tree. Actually, I can see on it. Actually, there's two, and there's a third. There's three dead leaves on the tree, and those are bad. And so I'm really sorry, but I need to go and work on accepting this bad tree. I don't know if we'll cut it down or what I need to do. Maybe I have to hug it or like kiss it or something. But yeah, sorry, no more stream because I have to go accept this tree. And when we get into acceptance as this thing, that's basically what we're doing. We're like, what's the magic solution to accepting this tree? But actually, by doing that, we have to be judging the tree. So I'm already not accepting it if I have to go find a special exercise to accept it. So yeah, I wouldn't like go looking for some kind of special exercise to accept particular thoughts. I would actually ask you, what exercise do you use to accept thoughts you like? You probably don't do anything. So it's not going to be about doing something. There'll probably be stuff you stop doing, like putting life on hold to go and judge and fix thoughts. Oh, yeah, Riley, let me know if you have any questions. Average girl, welcome. Said, how to create a distance on OCD. I was watching some videos with Jiddu Krishnamurti, and now I have existential thoughts. Oh, so actually, I find meditation one of the huge benefits of meditation, because what you're doing is sitting, stopping, having experiences, and learning how to not react automatically to them. That the benefit of meditation practice is that you put distance between you and your thoughts, because you start to show the brain you're not going to react automatically to it. It is like sitting, like, say in a normal day, the brain is like this person throwing balls at us, and we're constantly like catching them. And now with meditation, we sit down and we say, look, the world or the brain or whatever, my body, it can throw whatever it wants. And I'm not going to react to it. I'm not going to catch it. And at first, that's very challenging because we have these reflexes. But over time, we learn how to not react automatically. And that gives us the opportunity to notice what's coming at us, consider it, and make a choice about what we want to do. Sazni, thank you for reading the book and watching the videos. Hmm. So you asked, how can you deal with retroactive jealousy in a healthy way? One of the things I would look at is it's very unlikely those are the only compulsions. So, really important here. I would look at things you do in life to get certainty and control things. Because the brain just latches on to the past because it's trying to help us. It says, look, you want to get certainty about stuff? Ooh, here's a big uncertainty. And then also, it might be trying to control the future, where it says, oh, you've got to get uncertainty about this so that you can control the possibility of a bad thing happening in the future. So I would really look for, where did the brain learn that? Where did it learn you need to be certain about things to control bad possible things happening? And that's where I would start kind of playing around with cutting out compulsions. The one to blame. um, oh, the one to blame. So you said, do you have any advice on psychosomatic or chronic pain? So when you might have missed it earlier, we were actually talking about pain, and that this work is about how you interact differently with discomfort, and the fact that often it's psychosomatic. But psychosomatic pain is real. And also, it could just be chronic pain, like real pain. And either way, it's going to be about exploring how do you interact differently with it. So there is a video on my channel. It's called Somatic Symptom Busting Exercise Number 1. And if you look that up, it'll talk about some meditation exercises to explore interacting differently with physical discomfort and real physical discomfort. And a lot of this work, though, is about exploring how do we make space for discomfort. If there is a horrible, violent, disgusting, intrusive thought, I don't want to put life on hold and put that in charge of my life. Where, oh, I've got to go fix this before I can go and live. I want to explore how to make space for it while I live. And the same with, say, like chronic pain. It's going to be there. Okay, so this thing, this nasty, horrible, vicious, painful thing is there. I'm still going to honor the reality and the context of that. And how can I go and do things that I want to do while making space for it? Well, maybe also adjusting those things so that I'm not creating that, that kind of failure, self-sabotage that we were talking about at the very beginning of the stream, where I'm like, oh, there's this pain and I want to do this really impossible goal. Oh no, I can't do it. I am a failure. So we want to avoid that, because then we just end up doing lots of compulsions around, I'm a failure. I can't do what I want to do. And so it is always this balance. Taking the difficult experience along for the ride, also adjusting the goal so we can be successful. And I would say for everybody, whatever you're working on, make it easy to be successful. It's way more enjoyable to spend success than to constantly see yourself as like a failure and being in a hole that you've got to dig your way out of. So for some reason, we think that's going to like motivate us to go and like work harder, but it actually just demoralizes us and we just feel terrible. Oh, Isabel, thank you. There's a teacup, of course, that came with the place where I'm staying. Angela, yes, this is super common. She said, I feel like my anxiety has lessened around intrusive thoughts, but that in itself is terrifying. Does that make sense? Kind of like some part of myself is alarmed. I don't feel the same kind of anxiety. Yeah, it's a really important thing to understand, because so often we actually will stay in the mental illness and keep struggling precisely because we want the reassurance of feeling terrible. And so one of the biggest challenges is always to let things go well. You don't have to be anxious about thoughts. Any thoughts can be there. And when we stop hating on thoughts and stop the thought, we stop judging them so they don't bring up those feelings we hate, the brain will stop throwing up the intrusive thoughts. Yeah. But are you willing to let things go well? Are you willing to let go of that reassurance of fixing bad feelings? And it's often one of the biggest challenges for people. Joseph, yes, what is the difference between choosing to do something and doing it reactively? Yeah, and so it's just that. Did you identify that it was something you wanted to do proactively? And of course, there's always going to be things we react to. If I'm like walking down the street, so I'm like, I value going to the grocery store. And I also value exploring new things. So I take a new route to the grocery store. And on the way to the grocery store, I see a donut shop that I didn't know existed. Well, obviously I'm going to stop at the donut shop. Maybe that's reactive, but I mean, it also aligns with a passion and purpose of mine. So you could also say it's very proactive. Then you mentioned is it wrong to use your phone while eating or being on the toilet? So here's the thing, none of this stuff is good or right or bad or wrong. It's about what do you want to teach your brain? One of the reasons I always talk to people about their phone is because basically what we're doing is teaching the brain that we always need something to react to. So if we're, sitting on the toilet, we could just take a shit and be present for it. We don't have to use your phone. You don't have to ruminate. You're simply a human doing a human thing, and you can be present for that. But if you teach your brain, I've got to have something else to pay attention to right now. And who knows what you're doing? Maybe you're like doom scrolling through the news on your phone. And that seems okay. Like, oh, shouldn't I know what's going on right now in the world while I take a shit? So you're doing that. But then later, what's going to happen is you're going to be just like hanging out somewhere. I don't know, maybe you're waiting in line for something, and the brain's going to go, oh, you don't have something to do right now. I can think of something to do. Here's a horrible intrusive thought. Go think about it. And it's going to supply something to think about because we've taught our brains that we constantly need to be checking and controlling something. So if it's a skill you want to learn to simply be, then you actually have a lot of opportunities to practice. And it doesn't mean never using your phone. I mean, yeah, yesterday while I was eating, I went to like a restaurant and I was like doing some writing and I had my phone with me. Sure, I decided to go and do that. I actually picked a restaurant that had a beautiful view. I knew I was going to stay there for a while. I wanted to do some work and I was going to eat. Also, though, I can just sit at home and enjoy eating. And that's a really pleasurable experience as well. So part of it's just bringing that agency back to you. So the way I always approach it is not telling people it's good or bad to use your phone wherever. I just ask, can you sit on the toilet without your phone? And if you can't, then I would say maybe that's a skill you'd want to pick up. Igor, yes, what compulsions can watch out for my sensorimotor OCD? And so I think I understand what you're asking there. But I often suggest when people are struggling with sensorimotor OCD to look at things you like to be certain about and things you like to control. Because the brain just very naturally is going, oh, like here's all of this stuff you like to be certain about. Oh, well, are you certain about this feeling? Oh, are you certain about those eye fluids? Are you certain about swallowing? It's just doing what it's been trained to do. So where did it learn to do that? Those will be the opportunities to actually sit with some uncertainty. Oh, right. Uh, So right, you said, but if OCD is stuff that we're doing, why is deep brain stimulation so successful for treatment-resistant anxiety and depression if they target the right brain area? Oh, right. I would really challenge you on that research. So I'm familiar with this area. I also sit or have been sitting on the committee in our healthcare system that assesses technology. Um, I no, we haven't had have we had deep brain stimulation. No, there hasn't been deep brain stimulation, but there has been a couple RTMS um, applications. I'd really, really question your research there. In fact, sharing on deep brain stimulation, I have an article from years ago on everybody has a brain, looking at research around deep brain stimulation, particularly for OCD. Not anywhere near 50 to 80%. In fact, but the 50 number you mentioned there is interesting. So actually, the first study on deep brain stimulation for OCD was halted by the FDA because the placebo group was seeing a larger response. Throughout mental health treatment, one of the challenges is this very high placebo response. And for a lot of treatments, you're going to see around a 50% improvement, but also for placebo treatments. And so, yeah, I have no doubt actually that deep brain stimulation, it probably does get a 50% improvement rate. But also, just like they found in the first study, just just telling somebody that you've put an implant in their head and turned it on also gets better than 50%. So yeah, there are some issues there. We know so particularly when it comes to the placebo effect, we know that if you're told you're receiving like a novel treatment and then you get all of the attention, right? Like think of all of the attention you get going through the process to get surgery. It's like something implanted in your brain. That's a lot of people caring about you. And so, especially if you've been struggling, whether it's depression or anxiety, OCD too, suddenly you're in new environments, people really care about you, people really want to make you comfortable, you're doing something new, it's supposed to finally give you the power and agency to make changes. Yeah, like let's give everybody that experience of having people really care for them and making them feel safe. We'll probably see a lot of benefit from that too. Arfaj, you said, what do you mean by meditation? Is it that thing in which you sit for, say, 15 minutes and focus on your breath or scan your body? It could be. I really like just sitting meditation, where you sit, so not for 15 minutes, but maybe 45 or 50 minutes, and you just sit. And that's all you do. No following the breath. That would be too much work. That would be extra things. To sit and follow the breath, I don't have the energy for that. I'm much too lazy for that. But consider what you're doing in your head. I guess would be the thing here when you describe that. Like say like a body scan. I really enjoy body scan meditations. Uh, Thinking what's going on in my head during a body scan meditation is me practicing giving love and attention to different body parts. And so that if that's what I'm doing, then that's what I'm doing. It's not about, oh, I'm gonna like ruminate in my head and judge stuff while I move, kind of notice different parts of my body. And yeah, as Isabel says, there's actually a series of videos I put together called The Basics of Being, which is to walk you through an introduction to meditation. Yeah, you can find those on YouTube. If you just search Basics of Being, it'll come up. KF, hello. What's good? Purple Chicha. Chicha morada. I don't know. No, I won't be able to tip my cup. Can I? Can I get? Oh, maybe, maybe. There we go. There, we can see how purple it is. Delicious purple corn juice. Whoa, styled by stickers. Congratulations. Yeah, you said there. I know my. There's a table that's very, very far away from here that I'm putting my drink on. So I ate a fast food cheeseburger yesterday after not eating them for like 15 years. Not my fave, but cool to know I can eat them if I want. Yeah, I find a lot of it's just that. Starting to give ourselves that freedom that we could do the things we want to do. And it's not about reacting to some fear or controlling some possibility of some bad thing happening. But we get to make choices. And so even if we say, look, all of these things are optional, we then get to choose what we want to do. And that's pretty amazing. Yeah, Nicole. Like I said, the brain loves to debate about our self worth and others. Ah, Tonchio, did you? So you're asking about how to get out of rumination. Now, that is something we already discussed. Did you catch that earlier? Or if you're asking again, one of the things to look at with rumination is that it very naturally follows compulsions. So if we're doing lots of things to check and get certainty, then we're going to end up doing lots of ruminating. Tona, what do you recommend to do to help our communities to help improve social security, cartel violence, etc.? This is, questions like this are always really challenging, right? Because we see pain and difficulty in the world and we want to fix it and control it. But quite often it's being created by systems that are outside of our control. And so I find it's just about being able to ask that question while also being able to understand there might be things that we can't fix or control, right? Because no, it's like in the case of a lot of cartel violence, for example, all the money coming in from that is often coming from other countries and people who are spending money on drugs and not thinking of where that money goes, but then also governments that create a system where crime can thrive. I mean, like countries that have decriminalized drugs have had much better impact on reducing the crime and violence related to the drug industry. And so, but you see there, it's this big policy level, systems level exploration of change that we have to go on. So, yeah, it's about everybody looking at how their actions impact other people. Because quite often people will be like, "Oh, well, it's not a problem for me," but how they vote or the politicians they support may be implementing policies in one country, which then have a very negative impact in another country. So it's important for everybody to look at that. At the same time, when we're dealing with that, right, if somebody's dealing with that violence on a local level, they may not be able to change that. And so being able to look at how we take care of ourselves in that situation, and really just being able to ask that question, and look at those things, and how given the context in which I find myself, what's best for me and those around me, and making sure we're giving ourselves that hug. KF. said, is trying to be in the present good for treating OCD? Why would you not want to be in the present? Ashley. He said, I'm disturbed by the feeling of forgetting something important. I want to practice my values, but this is a value. I get caught up in listing things and reviewing. How do you not rationalize this? Yeah. So one, it might not be any kind of value that's about like chasing certainty. That's not gonna. That's just gonna be a compulsion, and it'll be about giving yourself trust. One of the things. So I used to have all sorts of compulsions around memory, and so yeah, it was about starting to look at things where I would often check or yeah, like try to make sure I didn't forget stuff and just start to set up exercises to practice trusting myself. And if I forget it, I forget it. I'll handle it. Because when we're constantly doing that stuff, we actually become more forgetful. It's the same as I used to reread and check emails all the time or rewrite things. It was like that made me bad at writing because it was as though my brain knew I was going to check. So one, it had to give me things to fix because then I'd be, oh, I found a mistake. Oh, good thing I checked. But then also just, yeah, it was like, it just was bad. So of course I had to reread and rewrite. And so actually removing the option to do that, yeah, it just made me much better from the start because there's no revisiting it. And so you'll find the same with memory. If you start using your memory, you get much better at it. But as long as we don't have to use it because we're going to do all of these compulsions, we actually tend to be really bad at with our memory, which then reinforces why we think we need to do the compulsions. Yeah, styled by stickers. Yeah, the like I say there, it's hard to practice trusting and listening to my body. Yeah, I don't find my body is that useful in or accurate, I guess I would say. And again, it's that perception thing. I found my perception of what was on in my body was generally wrong. Oh, great. Oh, I know. The Nicole, enjoy planting zinnias with your kale. It is smart, but that also I realize how far behind I am in the chat if we're just getting there. Hmm? Yeah, KF. Feeling your feelings. So the thing I'd watch out for, you're asking about, and like in the other one, like ways to treat OCD, ways to remedy OCD. It can really help to see like OCD is just the hating on, judging feelings and trying to fix and control them. So it's not like a thing to remedy. It's about are you going to have a feeling, and that's fine, or are you going to hate on the feeling and try to fix it and control it? And yeah, if you do the hating on the feeling and the fixing and controlling, then yeah, that can get labeled as OCD. But it just comes down to those choices we make there. Sound by stickers. I would love to do more field trip streams. We could try it sometime. Yeah, the I think I have a pretty good portable Wi-Fi, and I think yeah, it might be able to handle a tour stream. We'll see what we can do. Yeah, Erica, that's a great point about trust as an action. So yeah, Igor. So something to watch out for here. He said, I'm trying to overcome the doubt I have in treatment. I'm reading your book, doing therapy. European act seems to help, but there's always this question: what if treatment does not work? And I find, like I was saying there, with even just talking just now with KF about like remedying OCD, I find it. I always tell people none of the things will work. It's like the whole idea of is this thing going to work often implies we're doing a bunch of compulsions there. Like I'm going to get this thing that's going to eliminate this other stuff I hate. That's all OCD is. That's all any mental illness is. Oh, I'm going to do these things and it's going to get rid of the bad experience. If I have a lot of paranoia, oh, what's going to get rid of it? Oh, I'm going to go check this. I'm going to control this. I'm going to fight this. I'm going to fix this. So it really helps to shift the focus away from that. And even a really common compulsion is that people will say like, oh, like, I'm taking 10 medications, I've done this therapy, and I'm looking into deep brain stimulation, and I did RTMS, and I went to this psychiatrist, and I went to this therapist, and I've done that type of psychoanalysis, and like now I've got this type of supplement, and so on. These nootropics, etc. Try like they'll do like, oh, I'm not like I cut out masturbation, and I'm like going on this meditation retreat, and etc. All of the things to find a thing that works. And it's starting to recognize that that is the compulsion. I've got to find a thing that makes a human experience go away. And then we just struggle more with human experiences. And so I always emphasize, and even, yeah, if you've got my book, right, it says like first chapter is you're going to set a goal that a rock can't do better than you. And I guarantee that whatever you're looking for to work, that's a goal that a rock can do better than you. Because a rock can get rid of any experience. Rocks don't have feelings or thoughts. They don't even have physical sensations. So yeah, what would you like to grow? When we set a goal for mental health around just something we want to add into our lives, then we can do it. It's very easy to see if it's working because it's 100% on whether or not we do it. La Lumiere. I said, I fear trash, garbage, the floor, etc. My marriage is going downhill. I'm scared of doing ERP because I feel like I won't be able to endure it and would kill myself. Suggestions. That's a pretty intense ERP exercise. So the thing is, there's two things I'll emphasize. So one, actually, it can help to see that's the fear, like I won't handle it. It's not actually about contamination. And that's often the case. Like for instance, often people have contamination fears around, you know, spreading disease to somebody else or something horrible happening to them. But actually, when you dig into what they're afraid of is that they wouldn't be able to handle the guilt or they wouldn't be able to handle the loss. It's actually about that fear of not being able to handle it. So you can already see that there. And so it might help to see that's the thing to work on. And then also, yeah, like you mentioned your marriage going downhill, it can really help to shift the focus to what we want to grow in our lives. So if you want to build a great marriage, a great relationship, that can be a thing to put your time and energy into. And on the way there, yeah, you may have a lot of uncomfortable feelings, and you can practice handling them. Nicole, absolutely. Good tree judgment. I mean, all trees are pretty good. Pom Pom Kitty. How do we deal with our insecurities, like not being good enough? And how do we stop being hard on ourselves? Well, we can stop being hard on ourselves right now. And so one of the things to start doing there is starting a practice of being nice to yourself. Right? If you have a practice going of being nice to yourself, it's much easier to not be hard on yourself. When it comes to insecurities, yeah, it's going to be actually about giving yourself that trust, right? Stepping into the things you're insecure about and doing them. Oh, Alize, thanks for giving your students a lecture on my book. It went away. I'm just reading through here. S, hello. Said how to deal with severe anxiety linked to intrusive thoughts and also fear of failure, exams coming up. I worry I've not been studying well because of intrusive thoughts. So, yeah, like there'd be a bunch of things to dig into here. What, like, so one thing that I'll just share because it can help to see that the anxiety is not linked to intrusive thoughts. We have thoughts, and then we can do a bunch of compulsions around thoughts. Like a thought can pop into my head. I could be like, oh no, that shouldn't be there. I could be like, oh no, what does that mean? Does that mean something about me? Oh no, I've got to fix this. And that is going to make me really anxious. And so, yeah, what I would start to just be curious, what kind of things are happening around thoughts, and how would you like to interact with thoughts differently? Yeah, Alize, yeah, you don't have to do anything. I think the issue there is like this, like when you say one has made a mistake while trying to be mindful. So the compulsion is the, oh, like this is, I've done a mistake. No, like yeah, you did a thing, and that's fine. What do you want to do in this moment? Ashley, no, I've not heard of unified mindfulness. Yeah, but let us know. Like if you're exploring things like that, yeah, you can always explore it with curiosity. Is it useful to you? How? Yeah, what is our experience with applying any thing we explore? Hi, Taj. So I see your comment there. Do you have a question about that? Oh, maybe it's down below here. Yeah. Do you? I don't. Yeah. Do you have a question about that? Yeah. And then, Angela, I see you asked, what do you do with feelings of guilt and shame over intrusive thoughts, or how do you let those feelings go? I would actually look. So yeah, if we have a feeling, we can have it. Totally wonderful human experience to have guilt and shame. Like get the best guilt and shame, like top-notch premium quality. But what I would look at there is how that came about. Because yeah, like that's a set of compulsions. Like the brain just came up with a thought that is like that's what it does. It's this organ that comes up with random stuff all of the time. And so if we're then labeling that, oh, like that means something about me, and now I feel horrible. Yeah, that is like, I don't know if I can see. There's some. There might be some dog shit out there on the path. That's like me going, oh, I saw dog shit. I feel so horrible. How could I let myself see that? Right? Because we experience thoughts in the same way we experience things we see. They're just things we register. They're experiences. And so feeling guilty about a thought is like feeling guilty about seeing dog shit. So starting to look at why. Why do you judge thoughts as like meaning something? And that'll be the opportunity to make changes. Yes, Nicole, enjoy letting things go well. Alizane, well, so it's exactly because the brain always throws up stuff like hallucinations and perceptions that are wrong that we use values. So it's we trust our values rather than trusting checking random stuff in the brain. Rajpreet, yeah, you said, so yeah, you say that once you're done with the compulsions, we have to build a value engine. Can you please explain how to do that and what that means? Yeah, it's so if you've got my book, it's the second half of the book. The whole second half is exercises to explore that values engine. Basically, it's about recognizing that in the past, we used fear and anxiety and uncertainty as fuel. So fear would come up and then we would do something to fix it. And so it was very reactive. And now we start to use values. So we get very proactive. And it's going to be about exploring and trying things. Like one of it is to decide, like, what are the actions that I want to do in my life? And then playing around with how do you start aligning life with those actions you want to do and where you want to go. But often there'll be no feeling to react to. So like when we were talking before about the garden, there's if I wait for the garden to start to dry up before I water it, it's too late. Or if I just react to random feelings when it comes to taking care of the garden, it's probably not going to thrive well. So it's about identifying what are those actions and supports that are going to help me thrive well. How do I start to practice them consistently? Just because they're things I do, not because I need to, not because I'm trying to avoid some bad thing, but simply because this is what I want to grow. Patrick, he said, you're feeling good, things are going well. Then your brain says, don't get used to this or let your guard down. Something bad will come. What do you tell yourself when that happens? I find that's a great opportunity to give ourselves trust. Absolutely, something bad will come, and I trust myself to handle that. It also really helps me to look at uh, the fact that feeling good has nothing to do with mental health. My mental health is about doing things. It's about, you could say, doing well instead of feeling well. And so I'm going to look to that. If the brain's like, oh, something bad's going to happen, I'm like, okay. And I'm going to keep on doing these actions that are the practice of taking care of me and being myself in the world. Momo. So welcome. So that starting over that you described there, that's the compulsion. So yeah, at first I had compulsions like that. It's going to be about, yeah, doing some work. It's going to feel wrong. And then you don't redo it. So, I mean, there's all sorts of exercises you can look at around this. Excuse me. So like one I worked on. So it depends on what kind of, stuff you like to do. I practiced writing a blog post and publishing it without rereading it. So I set aside a chunk of time. I had to do it in that chunk of time and then post it. And so you just start to practice this. And of course, it's going to feel wrong. But yeah, it's just like any contamination compulsion. The more you chase that feeling of getting it right, it's going to feel wrong. Chloe, hello. Oh, right. I don't think you can put links in the chat. But if you put the title of a study, Graham, hello to London. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. I hope things are going well and you're having fun. Chloe, so after surgery, especially after any kind of medical experience or anything like that, yeah, we'll often notice the brain looking for things to control. because yeah, it's we just had an experience that was difficult, and absolutely, it'll be looking for things to check, looking for things to control, and so it's that opportunity to take care of yourself, to understand. Oh, of course, I just had a difficult experience, and my brain's just trying to help me. But then, yeah, looking at what's going to be best for you. How can you help yourself? Visually asked how to stop mental checking. It's like it's going to be you stopping it. So what I often suggest people start to do there is look at how to stop checking around stuff they like or aren't threatened by. Because we often do lots of checking around stuff that's not threatening. That makes it very difficult not to do checking around stuff that is threatening. Ah, right. Yeah. So thanks for sharing the study titles. So you touched on something there though that is always going to be a difficulty with these studies. So you mentioned there one of them had 50 patients. Um, yeah, it's a small cohort like that. Very once you factor in the exclusion criteria. Yeah, like most small cohort studies, yeah, are like typically gonna, uh, yeah, like go well. In part because, too, we know people can get like lots of extra attention. There's not too many people. It's I look forward to checking out the studies after. So yeah, thank you for sharing the titles. Yeah, ultimate opportunist. Said any tips on feeling like you're not progressing, feeling you're always starting over despite significant effort. Yeah, so it can really help to measure progress by something we want to keep. So something we're going to consistently build. So yeah, I would be curious there about how are you measuring progress right now? KF, is there anything about having a pet and ruminating less? I can witness to that after I'm recently having a dog. I think it's really important that we all get to see pictures of your dog. Yeah, right. Thanks for sharing the research. Like, I'm happy to go through them and talk about them on the Discord if you'd like. Yeah, there's often going to be anecdotal data around any kind of treatment, and I mean that's always been one of the challenges in psychiatric treatment. I mean that's the same reason so many psychiatric medications became very popular. Right in the early years, it was these wonder drugs, and now they've actually just steadily over the years, research shows they work less and less effective compared to placebo. And I mean, we've seen the same thing with now psychedelics recently as well. But I know some people on the Discord will remember a time when there was a person who was like doing psychedelic therapy and they came and they told everybody, I just did it and it changed my life. Everything is different now. And then a couple days later, they were right back into the same old compulsions on the server. Uh, it's it's why it ends up being so important to look, yeah, critically at the research, and look at the research very broadly, because just so it's been so many times over the years, everybody wants this magic perfect solution. And yeah, like I was saying, like the very first study on deep brain stimulation for OCD, yeah, got stopped because people who had this treatment resistant OCD were getting better after receiving no treatment, simply being told they were being treated. And so yeah, like that's the thing. It's really tricky doing research in mental health because there is such a strong placebo effect, and we know the more intensive the intervention is, the stronger the placebo effect is. Blooper, you got a new job. Congratulations. Hmm. Said I thought I was good at learning new things, but now I'm just scared all the time and I dread logging into work. I'm questioning if I'm intelligent enough for this and feel like an imposter. So first of all, be an imposter. That's great. Yeah, it can be really helpful to look at what's going to help you grow and build your skills at this job. And so, what kind of supports will help you notice that I'm an imposter, I can't do this, but take a step forward? Uh, is it going to be helpful to be kinder to yourself, to not expect yourself to be perfect at the job right now? How can you be a good colleague to yourself? Yeah, denizen of light there. So you mentioned when I'm working on my computer, intrusive thoughts always appear when I save, copy, paste, create files. What I'm working on is really important to me, and I end up feeling the intrusive thought is now associated with or implemented into the file, and I will delete it and attempt the action over again. What is a good strategy in dealing with this, as the compulsion is decreasing my productivity? So cutting out the compulsion. And so what I would look at there is, like, you can very clearly see the compulsion. And so I would actually look, like, why are you asking for a strategy instead of just cutting out the compulsion? Kevin, thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being part of the community. I'm glad, yeah, I'm glad you're finding these tools useful. Thank you. Silent spaces. Said, have you ever ran into values conflicts? And how do you approach these? I often flip between choosing one life decision over the other. I feel comparing cost versus benefit would just lead me in circles. So what helps me, I already know which values beat other values. I describe it as like doing rock, paper, scissors, but I already know which one beats which one. So yeah, it's just deciding, hey, in any situation, I'm always going to pick this one, and doing that in advance. So, because we don't want to have that debate when we get there. Oh, Diren, thank you so much for the kind message. I'm glad the videos have been helpful. Lemon said, there's an obsession with my girlfriend's past. I feel inferior. I blame my past porn use. How can I stop judging her and myself? It ruins the love, respect I have for her, and we argue. And so, one thing that could be really useful to start is identifying a set of relationship values. And specifically, what are the actions you do in this relationship that help the relationship grow? And what do you want to grow in the relationship? And then it's just about doing those. It's noticing maybe some obsession about the past or shame or whatever, judgment about yourself, and saying, okay, brain wants me to go do some compulsions around this right now, but I'm going to go do this other action that actually builds the relationship. And then you go and you do that. Mhm. Missed, I won't be able to send the Discord link to you here. I can't type in the chat, but if you send me a message through my website or something, or on Instagram, or just in the YouTube comments after, then I can share the link. Styled by stickers. Yes, I just want to say I've also been enjoying my non-illness focus so much lately. I've missed a few streams, but just got surprised by this one. Yeah, no, that's great. It's so important that we can just go and live our lives. Like, we don't have to stick around with this stuff. Like, I find it really important in my work that it's about giving people the tools to just leave this stuff behind. Like, you don't have to join a mental illness group. You don't have to identify with it. Yeah, there's some skills we don't have. We struggle with some things because we don't have those skills. We recognize we want to learn those skills. We learn those skills and we head off, and that's fine. Mm. So, Lemon, so you said, I've been trying to focus on my values, but the thoughts and feelings persist. So, if you're focusing on what you value, why does it matter if there are thoughts and feelings there? And why are you spending time on them? So I would just consider that maybe if you're still hating on the thoughts, you're still like, oh, I don't like these, I've got to find a solution to fix them, etc. You're not building the relationship. Like, because like you mentioned there, like you were saying, the thoughts and stuff end up getting you into arguments. So I would see that as conflicting with the statement that you're doing the things you value. Um, yeah, why spend any time on the thoughts? What are those things you really want to build in the relationship? Exactly, styled by stickers. Enjoy just going outside. Yeah, and so as Erica asked down below, yeah, what would you like to build in your relationship? Anna, yeah, you said, how do you deal with intrusive thoughts in the morning? For some reason, that's when I have them the most. That's really common. A lot of people will notice they have intrusive thoughts. Like, they wake up and they're just there. And so, one, that's super common. And I suggest people, so when it doesn't really change anything, the intrusive thoughts come up in the morning or at 2 p.m. or at 8 p.m., that's all great. But I always suggest to people to really know what you're going to do first thing in the morning. And really, so you can do that on autopilot. So what I used to do, I used to put a note on my phone. So the alarm would go off and the note would tell me what to go and do. So I wasn't just sitting there like checking thoughts, checking if I felt okay to get up, or waiting for the pressure of being late to get me up or something like that. So yeah, starting to explore, like, what do you want to do in the morning while having any thought or feeling? Oh, Rizzo, hey, I'm so glad that these tools have been helpful for you. And yeah, congratulations on seeing the benefit of working on your mental fitness, just like your physical fitness. Yeah, I'm really glad this has been helpful for you. Chuck, you said, any tips for SO OCD? They say it's chronic. So, one, it can really help to expand how you approach OCD. OCD is always more than the compulsions, uh, than more than the compulsions we see as troubling us. And like whoever said it's chronic, I mean, I don't know if that works for them. That's fine. Mike, yeah, you said OCD tells me if I don't check certain things that something bad is going to happen, and my life is never going to be the same. I have this fear that if I experience some things, then my maybe life will be ruined forever. Yes, risk it. Ultimate said, so you say that feelings are not that important. Well, so actually, no, I would say feelings are very important. They're wonderful to have. I mean, it's amazing to have feelings. I'd say the benefit of this work is that we can have any feeling because it's no longer attached to an action that we're required to do. So maybe that's let's say have feelings. I say one of the big benefits of working on my mental health and fitness is that I can, in doing the work I do now, people can be in really difficult situations. We can be sad together. We can be happy. We can be afraid, and that's great. So yeah, I wouldn't say feelings aren't important, but should feelings be in charge of my actions? I wouldn't put them in charge of my actions because they could just be all over the place. And so you described exactly why. So you said, I'm much better when I feel good and confident and have that belief. How can we incorporate that with the rest of your teachings? But it's exactly that. Uh, so say, for example, like in the work I do, whether it's working with people going through a difficult situation or, doing a live stream or something like that, the way I'm going to do that is going to be the same no matter what I feel today. Because creating a video or creating a space to work with somebody on difficult challenges, or say in business consulting work, helping a company innovate, that can't have anything to do with whether I feel confident or not. I can't say to a company, well, we could have come up with an innovative product, but I didn't feel confident that day. It has nothing to do with that. And so it's really about looking at how to do things well. And so the example I often use with this is making cookies. It's like baking cookies. How to bake cookies well is about consistent practices that have nothing to do with how I feel. In fact, it's amazing. I could feel really sad and bake a good batch of cookies. I could feel really happy and bake a good batch of cookies. Because the practices that go into baking a good batch of cookies are consistent. They are not dependent on how I'm feeling. And so that's, I guess, a principle or a concept that we can take in many areas of the life, and it becomes very necessary. If, yeah, if making cookies was like so tightly linked to how I was feeling in any given moment, well, like sometimes I wouldn't make good cookies then, and that'd be really unfortunate. Then I would feel really sad. Isabel, yes, you fell asleep and now you will never recover. We did cover all of the most important special secret tips while you're asleep, and that's what happens. Oh, Respy, you're welcome. Angela, you're welcome. Ah, Nicole, yeah, if you're looking into the studies, like you said, if those studies were about feelings, I I have a lot of opinions about that on mental health studies in general. Yeah, because you can't, with all sorts of things, often they'll measure subjective feeling, and it's got to be about concrete objective functioning. Because that's the thing. If, of course, we feel good after getting something special and a lot of attention. Ashley, yeah, he said, so I got your bookmark. I've had it for like a year, but I think the reason I never got through your book is that I wanted a quick fix. I'm at a place where I want to work on things. I'm gonna sweat. Enjoy the sweating. It is true. It's not a it's not a quick fix. It's yeah, it's stuff very much like physical fitness. But seeing that even though we might be chasing something in the future, we can be practicing it right now. Like when we say, oh, it's not a thing to fix, it's about things I do, I can start doing those things today. And in that way, it can be really quick. Arfaj, thank you so much for dropping by. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you. Oh, Michelle. Yeah, so we watched some of your videos in my group therapy. I subscribe so I can maintain my mental health and not relapse. I hope you continue to find this useful. Oh, Lemon. Yeah, you said this is my first time partaking in one of your live streams. I've watched so many. Thank you. Hey, thanks for stepping in and joining. It is great to have you. Everybody, we're coming up on the end of questions. If there are any other questions, so anybody else who's been watching and you maybe have a question, but you haven't shared it and you want to, feel free to hop in here now, just like Lemon Lotus did today. Oh, Thomas. So he said, any tips on how to stop waking up 4 times a night and constant nightmares? I've been meditating for 2 years about and tried a lot of habits, but still no luck and the fatigue sucks. Yeah, so my question would be, why would why did you mention meditation there? And when you mention those other habits, do you see those, like, was the goal that those should fix and help you control sleep? I find that running into sleep trouble. So one thing I'll say, running into sleep issues that you're mentioning there, really common. Same with nightmares. But what I would look at instead is actually that the what creates problems for us is this going, oh, this is a bad thing, I've got to fix. And then we start doing all this stuff to fix it. And that actually creates more of it. Just like if somebody gets into lots of hand washing compulsions because they want to get rid of a contaminated feeling, they're going to start to feel more contaminated. The moment we get into that fixing and controlling, we are just generally going to create more of the problem. And so, yeah, if you were approaching meditation as like, I'm going to meditate to fix a thing, that I would expect to create more of the thing. How would it be if it was okay to wake up 4 times a night and have nightmares? How would it be if it was okay to feel tired the next day and it wasn't a bad thing you had to fix? This is often the paradox of this work and why it's challenging. But when we make space for the things that we've been hating on and trying to control, the benefit of that is that we often no longer struggle with them. But that can't be the focus. As long as it's the focus, it just keeps popping up. And so I found it really helpful to, yeah, make space for it. Say, like, I want to have, like, tiredness was something I had a lot of compulsions around. I want to be good at being tired. I want to know what, and so even to look at if there's any things you avoid because of tiredness, or you say, oh, like, I had a bad night of sleep, so now I can't go do this thing I was going to go do. Those are the compulsions that I would cut out. And approach says, hey, yeah, you know what? I didn't sleep last night. I had horrible nightmares. That's amazing. I want to learn what it's like to go on a date now, being tired after having nightmares. I want to be good at that. Because when that's no longer a scary thing to fix, the brain can't use it to keep pushing us into compulsions. Miles, he said, isn't making and consuming art and music about putting feelings in charge? So can you explain how or what you mean by that? I find it's actually great now because I can say, like, watch a really sad movie and cry, and then just go do something else. Whereas in the past, or like watch a scary movie, or right, the same reason we get afraid of nightmares, because I can't. If I get afraid of this, it's going to taint something else. And so I find it really useful to be able to step into the experience of art, feel it, and also then go and do whatever else I want to do. Ryan, hello to Singapore. Oh, I'm glad these videos have been useful to you. Thanks for saying hi and stopping by the chat. Moi moi said how to stop going into bouts of depression. So I was first diagnosed with depression, and something that helped me was seeing how depression was this spiral, right, of basically trying to avoid and control experiences I didn't like, which then meant I wasn't living my life, right? Putting all of this brain stuff in charge of my life, which then would make me panic more because I wanted to live my life. So then the brain starts to worry even more. Oh no, like you're losing control of your life, throws up more intrusive thoughts, which would make me avoid things more, do more, like less, panic more, worry more, intrusive thoughts more, me doing less, and so on, until I was doing nothing and everything felt terrible. And so it really helped me to look at winding that spiral out again. And that was about stepping into uncomfortable experiences and saying, look, I want to start having uncomfortable experiences while living my life. Here are the actions I'm going to practice. And really recognizing, hey, look, I'm being me. I trust myself to go and be me. And really winding that spiral out. But yeah, especially with depression, noticing that is very much a reaction to like, oh, bad feeling, wrong feeling, and then putting that in control of my life. And I had to come back to me living my life with whatever. Mm. Amelia, so I think you asked, so I'll read your question first and then explain. So you said, I've been told by some people and other channels that a main strategy to stop ruminating and intrusive thoughts is distraction. But I've also been told that distraction is bad and that you should accept. So I think one of the things people get confused with here, and that can become a compulsion, is we think like, oh, I had a bad thought, I must not avoid it, I must face it, and then we just sit there staring at it. And so I say, like, for a second, just park anything to do with thoughts and say, look, what's the goal here? And I would say that the goal is to live our lives, is to be ourselves and give what we want to give to the world. So that's what we're going to start with any kind of mental health work. This has to be about, where do I want to go? What do I want to give? Anything I do is going to line up with that. Okay, so the reason I bring that up is because living our lives and doing the things we want to do, that is never a distraction. That is never avoidance. So if I'm saying like, okay, I'm going to do something important, we're going to go to the donut shop. So I'm going to the donut shop, and then the brain is like, oh no, what if on the way to the donut shop you killed a bus full of baby alpacas? And I'm like, oh no, that would be terrible. I would be a horrible person if I did that. But then I remember, oh yeah, what am I doing right now? I'm doing something important. I'm going to the donut shop. I'm going to give my attention back to that. That is not distraction or avoidance. The distraction was the intrusive thought. Because I want to go live my life, and me stopping living my life to go and argue with an intrusive thought or to check on it or control it in some way, that is the distraction. That is the avoidance, because the thing I want to do is live my life. And so with any kind of technique around intrusive thoughts or ruminating, I would start always with, what do you want to be doing in your life? That helps us see what is the distraction and what is not. Paying attention to the brain stuff is the distraction and avoidance. Giving my attention back to the donut shop, always 110% of the time, is the best option. Oh, Mike, this is not a complex question. You said, how do you manage to keep smiling and staying so positive? It's because so one, yeah, like I used to struggle with really severe mental illness. And like I used to just see violent things happening every day to other people or myself. I don't struggle with any of that anymore. So that is nice. So that's good. But also I would say now being open to having any thought or feeling. So there's no, I mean, if I did have some horrible thought of, whatever, murdering baby alpacas and then, jabbing their bones into my eyeballs or something. I used to have a lot of images of jabbing things into my eyeballs. It was very popular for the brain. But if I did have that now, I would be happy to have that. There's no reason I can't see anything or thinking anything or feel anything and not be excited about that. Like that is a human experience I can have. And then, like we were talking earlier, the paradox of that is that when we're open to having any thought or feeling, we don't generally have them. But also then, yeah, when we get off that, I'm trying to think of what you would call that. It's not a cartwheel. When we get off, I don't know, the rat wheel of chasing good feelings. It really helped me to see that there just kind of is this bottomless pit of happiness. And that's really, I would say, what mindfulness is about. Because when we're always chasing something, we're always chasing a fix to a problem, then we need to be unhappy. We need to be feeling terrible because we're going to fix it and then we're going to get happiness. But as long as we're committed to that practice, we actually just kind of feel bad a lot. And when we say, look, I don't have to go and chase happiness and fix problems anymore, we kind of start to realize that our natural state's to be pretty okay. Yeah, because there's, no thought is going to be a problem. No image is going to be a problem. No feeling is a problem. And so, yeah, that's pretty good. It's a good time. I encourage it. I recommend it. Lemon. He said, do we ignore thoughts or do we welcome thoughts? It's a little confusing. I guess it all depends on where we are in our journey. Yeah, because you will play with both things. Like that's what in my book I talk about the two tricks, which are basically that. So the way I approach it is if somebody's already doing compulsions, then we want to work on welcoming the thoughts because they're already caught up in them. So at that point, yeah, okay, like I want this. And like, yeah, I'm going to handle this and terrible things are going to happen. And, yeah, I'm going to, burn down the world and I'm going to have to explain to everybody that I burned down the world and I'm really sorry and everyone's going to be really angry at me. So if we've already started doing the compulsions, then I find that technique is useful, right? Because there's a fear there. And okay, if we're going to try to control that fear, let's just take it to the worst possible consequence and deal with that. But I would say the thing we want to work towards is that, yeah, the brain could just go do its thing and that's fine. It's just like hearing a dog bark outside. I'm not going to stop and go, oh no, I must go accept the dog barking. No, it's just the dog. It's doing its thing. Dogs bark. Brains make thoughts. And I'm going to go do my thing. But yeah, you'll probably, with those two things, you actually want to look at like why is it challenging to just let the dog bark? And often in that challenge, you see a lot of the compulsions we're doing because maybe we think we have an unhelpful belief that, oh, if I have these thoughts, it means something about me. So we notice that and we say, oh, okay, actually, I'm going to work on throwing out that unhelpful belief. Ravinder, you said, I get thoughts about unwanted people. That's okay. What if that's okay? That's just the brain doing a thing the brain does. So yeah, Miles, I think, and this, yeah, maybe is a confusing bit with the feelings thing. So you're asking about, an artist, not indulging their feelings, good or bad, to create meaningful art, music. Um, yeah, like I don't see the contradiction there. Like when I'm writing, I would say it really helps me actually to be able to, yeah, feel, to be able to feel what the person, my audience um, how they might interact with something, but also, yeah, like in telling a story, really putting myself in it, for example, and feeling it, like remembering what it felt like. So yeah, maybe yeah, I'm not seeing the contradiction there or what the issue would be. Yes, Isabel, the same company that runs the baby panda bus does run the baby alpaca bus, and like they just operate in different territories. Yeah, depending on which animal is more common. Yeah, exactly, Erica. It's smiling and offering encouragement to others are actions we can choose to do if we want to do them. 100%. Chris, your exams are over. Congratulations. Yeah, Ravinder. Yeah, I said daily what if thoughts if I died or my dad, then thinking how people react and feeling sorry. To be honest, it's deeply rooted with narcissism, I believe. Oh, I don't know how you made that jump. That it sounds more like it might be deeply rooted with judgments about yourself. Yes, Nicole. He said, I can accept myself as I do a tree. I don't need to move to a new city or fix something about my life to then accept myself. Yeah, I think so important for everybody, even if we're going to change something. So important to really like where we're at and really enjoy here. Yeah, there's no magic thing we move to or drastic change that we need to do to fix liking ourselves. We can just do that right now. Oh, Ashley. Yeah, you said I heard at the beginning of your stream you talking about emetophobia. Yeah, so for everybody, that's the fear of vomit. I've been having lots of intrusive thoughts about questioning whether or not I feel okay and if I'm gonna puke. Oh, internet cut out there for a second, but it's back. Yeah, so actually, so one of the things I see there you mentioned at the end, it's a new theme. I'd actually suggest that it's not a new theme. It'll just be an extension because it's yeah, it's oh no, I'm gonna have an uncomfortable feeling, or I'm gonna puke and people are gonna judge me. I'm gonna lose control of my body. I don't want to lose control of my body. Um, Not really a new theme, and so being able to see those underlying uncertainties is really useful. So Tanjiho, yeah, what if right now you didn't have to fix that? Chiata. Yeah, he said, I want to do what I want while having anxiety. But for example, sexual performance anxiety does not let me do what I want because, as you know, some of our parts are independent. It's a good point. How do you approach? So there's a couple things. One of them, I've started to look at like how does a question I'll ask people around this is where does the sexual performance anxiety start? Because we often think like, oh, it's in bed, but actually, if we've started doing a bunch of compulsions long before, like, oh, I hope this doesn't happen. Oh, I've got to do this to try to make sure I don't, like, I can perform in bed, and we start doing all of that stuff. Then it's very natural we're not going to, because what we're doing and trying to fix it is just teaching the brain to be more anxious about it. So that'd be one thing. I'd start to look at where do the compulsions start around sexual performance anxiety. And then the other thing to look at is starting to make sex about what you give. And saying like, okay, like let's say things don't perform. Let's say the independent contractor does not show up. That doesn't mean things are over. That doesn't mean you can't give a great experience to the person you're with. That doesn't mean you can't have a great time. And so starting to say, when the brain's like, ooh, what if the independent contractor doesn't show up? Being like, yeah, I don't need him. I don't care. And here's how I'm going to have a good time. And bringing it back to, yeah, really creating a special experience. Mhm. Ashley, yeah, yes. How do you get out of giving it attention when you fear the consequence? Go for the consequence. Yeah, is it useful to keep fearing that consequence? Yeah. How can you change your relationship with that consequence? And so that's often what, when we talk about the two tricks I was mentioning there, it's going after that consequence and starting to work on that, that the consequence is the actual issue. Mike, so yeah, you said, what are your thoughts on psychedelics? Have you tried any yourself? Um, uh, not in a therapeutic context. But yeah, you may have missed it. I was talking before. Like, there's a lot of hype around psychedelics right now, but a lot of the research has not been that good. I mean ketamine or esketamine, as the prescription medicine is called. The research, been a lot of controversy around it. Um, Studies showing that it like wasn't isn't actually that effective. And like I was saying earlier, we've like anecdotally, I've worked with lots of people, or we've had people participate in the Discord server that have used psychedelics. I haven't seen any anecdotal evidence yet that it's useful. Although I see lots of people say it is, but then just very like factually, nothing actually changes. And so I think, yeah, like some people do have like a good experience at the session, but afterwards, I haven't seen any evidence, and it's proving difficult to demonstrate in research that people actually make changes. But at the same time, I think anything that is going to help somebody make a change, I'm open to that if they're going to make the change. But it's got to be about changes, like some kind of idea that I'm going to be practicing lots of unhealthy things in my life. I'm going to go do some drug, and then it's going to cut out all the unhealthy practices. I find that pretty unlikely. But combining, doing any kind of treatment with us making changes, that can be useful. Revenue, no, I don't smoke weed. I drink purple corn juice. And with that, it looks like there's a minute left before the 2 hour mark. So why don't we wrap things up there? I'm gonna go finish my purple corn juice and have lunch. I love lunch. It's one of my favorite meals. Everybody, thank you so much. Thank you so much for stopping by today. Kevin, again, thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate that. Yeah, thank you everybody for sharing. Thank you for people who have been sharing their insights too in the chat. I really appreciate you, yeah, sharing your wisdom and expertise in there with everybody. Uh, yeah, Erica and Bagel, yeah, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you for sharing parts of your journey too. I know like a lot of you have watched these videos over the years, or like you've got my book and stuff like that, and I really appreciate that. It's so special to connect with people around the world as we take these journeys. And so yeah, it's not lost. It's really great that we can build community around this and support each other as we deal with these weird things stuck in our skulls. So yeah, thank you so much. Oh, Ashley, thank you. Oh no, you said make the consequence more palatable. No, make the consequence worse. That's the way I've. It's making it worse and seeing that I'll handle it. That's what I was getting at with like I'll burn down the world and then I'll have to explain to people that I did it. Because often we may think it's the fears like, oh no, I'm afraid of setting something on fire, but actually it's looking at the consequence. Oh no, it's all have to explain to people or all be responsible. And so no, we want to go on, push on that and say, no, brain, like, yeah, you know what? I can handle this. Yeah, people could be mad at me and I'll tackle it. And I'll take care of myself, right? I'll be kind to myself in that difficult situation. Erica, you're absolutely correct. There's nothing more psychedelic than purple corn juice. Just saying purple corn juice out loud is incredible. Oh, Ravinder. Oh, my book is available in the UK. In the UK, it's called The Mind Workout. Yeah. Oh, as Erica said down below. Yeah, thanks, Erica. And Isabel pointed out too. Thank you, Isabel. Yeah. Yes, the Mind Workout. It's pretty much the same book as the Rock book. They did there was like some rewrites, and a lot of words changed because yeah, the You Are Not a Rock is for the North American market, and of course in the UK they put their groceries in the boot of the car, and in America it's very difficult to fit your groceries in a boot, and so because of that, some of the words are different. I think it was particularly around toilet paper. I remember there was an argument with editors around what we were going to call toilet paper. I think because yeah, what's it? Somebody can mention to close this out. What's toilet paper called in the UK? Is it loo roll? Something like that, right? Yes. There's a boot. That's one example of a boot in the world. Anyhow, let's go eat lunch. Are you sure it's called toilet paper? Well, maybe it is. And let's just go enjoy our toilet paper. Remember, everybody, if you can't sit on the toilet without a phone, maybe that's a skill you'd like to learn. Exactly, Erica. A boot is something totally different in Canada. A boot can handle all of the groceries. All right, everybody. It was a huge pleasure, as always, chatting with you, and I hope you have a great day. Oh, Naomi. Oh, thank you for sharing about You're Not a Rock. Oh, Michelle says it's called bath tissue. But if I put the tissue in the bath, won't it like dissolve? Yes, Ashley, absolutely. Hike up those consequences. Isabel, yes. Toilet roll is another good one. Absolutely. Everybody, let's go and give thanks to toilet roll. One thing that is very common in the world. All right, have a great weekend. Enjoy the start of the week, and we'll be back on Twitch on Sundays. Erica, thank you. I will have a happy lunch. All right, everybody, have a happy lunch and or dinner, and or whatever meal you're about to enjoy.